Welcome to Music Pro Daily, where each day we share our insight to help music producers grow their brand, land more clients, and connect with the market. The Music Pro Daily podcast shares real value from the daily interactions of music professionals Daniel Grimmett and myself, Nicholas Di Lorenzo. Welcome back to Music Pro Daily. Thank you kindly for tuning in. It is incredible. Every time I log on to our audio podcast aggregator, I get to see the analytics and the insights. And it's so humbling, so beautiful to know so many people are listening to this podcast, engaging in Daniel and I's ideas, Daniel and I's conversations, Daniel and I's experiences we have in the music industry, on the regular. Some days we're getting over 150, 100, fucking listeners. And that, to me, that's like, hey, wow, that's incredible that many people would want to actually listen to us just fucking nagging on about our stuff. So look, super humbled, but more importantly, the reason why you're here is to learn about rate enquiries. That's what the title of this podcast is. That is what this is about. And Daniel and I both have opposing views on this. I'm not going to explain Daniel's view, but only he can explain that. He might do that in another podcast episode, which would be great. But my view comes from this sort of philosophy that people are shopping around, and when they ask questions, it's your job to answer them. Now, if somebody asks you your rate, you're not going to just give them a flat answer, obviously, but you can't avoid the question. I think it's dangerous to sidestep it. I think you need to be direct and honest and have that transparency with them from the get-go. But not like you might think, because here's the thing. A lot of people are like, I don't want to have a set rate, because then what happens, if a project's, doesn't really fall within, if it's not feasible for me to do a project at a certain price, or I don't want to overcharge, or I don't want to undercharge. I get that, but I have some methods and some techniques on how you can respond to rate inquiries. So you respect people coming in, you respect their question, but you don't make it about the money, because that is the worst thing you can do. Here's the thing, because I am going to run this clip in about 30, 40 seconds once I finish explaining myself, because if you make it about the money and purely about the rate, you become a commodity. And in a commoditized market where people are just looking at the dollar value, everybody goes for the cheapest. Plain and simple. So in my methodology, it's not about making your number stand out. It's about respecting the question, okay, which people ask, what's your rate? You respect that question, and I'll show you guys some techniques on how to formulate responding to that question. But more importantly, the caveat to what you're going to listen to this whole podcast episode, more importantly, you make the response about them, their project, their needs, and how you can help them, or at least trying to divulge information from them that can allow you to create solutions for them which are valuable, okay? That's what differentiates somebody from who goes, hey, what's your rate? Oh, here's my rate. Here's when I can do it. Let's fuck. You don't want that. You don't want to be known as that guy who got hired based on the rate. You want to be known as that guy or girl who got hired based on the amount of value you were able to provide somebody, which was just exceptionally intangible to them. In the terms of that, they didn't purchase you on rate. They purchased you on your solution ability, your ability to provide a solution for their problems, or a unique solution for their unique set of problems. So guys, anyway, I'm going to roll this clip. This clip is from a coaching call I had with a mixing client. You guys have to understand, I come from the mixing and mastering world. That's where I'm born and bred. Last 5.5 years, I've done over 1,200 projects. And that's where I understand the psyche of artists, producers, and engineers looking for mixers, and I understand their problems. I understand how to connect with them and sort of what they look for, and that's what's really important to contextualize in this conversation that's going to follow. A little bit of pre-roll before we roll. I'm not trying to linger this on. I'm just trying to give you guys as much meat and information before we get into it. This conversation is sort of off the back of me and my coaching client discussing, hey, when I don't give a price and we start divulging into information, when we do get to a price, it sort of falls apart. Or, people, by the end of that call of trying to, divulge information, set up a game plan, they're not asking for a price, or they're going to somebody already because they found somebody who was cheaper, a mate or whatnot, which, sets up some red flags to say they weren't the right client in the first place, but I still wanted to give some pragmatic advice on how to respond to rate inquiries. So guys, I'm going to roll the clip. This is a really long intro, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this and get some context to what you're about to hear. All right? Take care.
To produce a track, how much to mix it.
Yep.
Which I'm not answering that until I've spoken to them quite a bit. So then I'm more asking them, to be honest. Like I'm asking questions in these situations. So, how is your songwriting process? What are you doing? Are you self-recording? What's going on when you're self-recording? What software? Who's the key songwriter? It does tend to be me more asking questions than them asking questions.
Okay, interesting.
I'm just trying to think of a way. Sorry, I'm kind of struggling to answer that a little bit. I don't know, man. I'm sorry, I haven't really got an answer to this. It's very much an open discussion when I'm working with these people. I don't know how else to phrase that, really. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm just trying to think of tactic, because I think what's happening is, and this is something I've learned, is that if people ask for something, you should answer it.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
I know, like, we don't have set rates, we don't have set prices. It's a bit hard to be like, hey, this is the costing of something, just off the bat without hearing more about it. But if somebody asks you a question, you're going to fulfill them much more by answering it directly and then going deep.
Okay.
So,
this something's been on my mind for a while.
So there's two... There's sort of two things I've done in the past. Either I'll list a MLE, which is a minimum level of engagement, or I'll give them a cost bracket. Okay, because if somebody goes, what's your rate? And you're like, well, like how long's a piece of string? Then you start this back and forth when, they've probably emailed 4 or 5 other places, asked for a rate, and people have just given them a number. Now, those places that are just giving them a number and nothing else are the commodity, and obviously you're asking questions and you're trying to dig more information out. You're obviously trying to provide more value. You're trying to provide more context so they can justify that purchase process. That's really good. You're doing that. You're digging deep. You're helping them solve a problem, which is what we do as service providers. However, inadvertently you're shooting yourself in the foot by not answering their question when they ask what is the price. Now this is really fucking hard, because you don't want to say a price and then anchor yourself to that, whether it's too high or too low. So there's two things. MLE, minimum level of engagement, is, let's say it's for me. I'll give you context so you understand my process. Somebody comes in, how much to mix an EDM record, or how much to mix this record, and I'll go, look, thanks for contacting me. My name's Nick. Minimum, in terms of costing, my minimum level of engagement on a project is $500. I'm telling you this out of respect, so we don't waste one another's time. But more importantly than the price is the job itself and how you want to go about it. So tell me more about this project. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to dig deep, so that way we can, narrow down to exactly what we can do and how we can go about achieving what you're after. Okay? So that's type 1. That's minimum level of engagement. That's like that's how much it costs me to even wake up in the morning and look at a mixing project. Okay? The other is when people are when I can see the signs of a project being a little bit more than just a mix, and let's say there's vocal tuning and editing and other things. Like, oh, hey, I'm a pop artist and I've recorded this, and I've got all these vocal takes I need to tune, and I've got this cool production, and it might need some editing or whatever. They start to build out a bit of a story, and I've got more to latch onto. I won't give them an MLE. What I'll do is I'll say, hey, I don't know, let's say John Smith. Hey, John Smith, really excited to hear about your record. That's great. Projects typical to what you're describing to me cost anywhere within the range of $1,000 to $600. Moving forward, to help us narrow that down, I'd love to hear more about the vocals that you've taken. Like how many backing vocal layers are there? Are they tuned? Do they need additional alignment? Like what's happening there? And also, I'd love to hear the production itself, so we can start to build up something from there. That way, you know, with a project like that where there's so many variables, I offer a really big price bracket. You know, that's almost 50%, like $1,600. You know, so if I don't need it, and the reason why this is a very short deviation. The reason why I list the bigger number first is because the first number they see is what they anchor themselves to.
Yeah, I saw your post.
It's actually a really good technique because people see 1,000, and then when you come in at 700, they're already prepped for the 1,000, and they're much more excited coming in. Anyway, so basically, either use a minimum cost of engagement or a price bracket. So you answer their question respectfully, but make sure that isn't the meat of your message, because you're not a commodity. You're not trying to sell them fucking, you know, penny stocks or whatever. You're actually trying to help them through a process. So answer their question, go, hey, this is my minimum cost, or this is a price range of what similar projects look like. And in order for me to help you get to a final number, in order for me to help you actually achieve what you're after, let's talk about a few of these key factors you've mentioned. And that's what will set you aside from somebody going, hey, this is my rate, this is my turnaround time, let's fuck.
Yeah, man, that's interesting. Like that's the way you phrase it would save me a lot of bullshit. It really would.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably quite aware of what I'm doing when I'm having these conversations. Yeah, one, I do want to know more. Two, I'm just trying to engage a conversation more than a single email. I'm trying to get this to happen, like literal FaceTime or a video chat, because it's generally, if I can get this to happen, I can either get it as it needs to be, get the job booked, or I can at least have a nice chat with them, talk some shit, maybe next time.
Yeah.
So, do you see what I'm saying? It's almost like if I can get them into a conversation, they can hopefully look back on the conversation we had and go, oh, that was cool, you spoke about this and spoke about that, and irrespective of whether it actually happens or not, maybe next time around, you know, they may go and fuck it up now. Hopefully they'll come do it with me and I'll fuck it up for them later.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, so my thing is just be super, super conscious of what people are asking. A monumental thank you to those listening and those of you who share, subscribe and review this podcast. Music Pro Daily is all orchestrated in-house by Daniel Grimmett and myself, Nicholas Di Lorenzo. The music industry is our shared passion. If you ever want to see more of us in the studio or at the office, head over to musicprodaily.com where you can find links to our socials and stalk more of us and see us doing what we do best. Thank you again and see you tomorrow.